Good evening, colleagues. My name is Sediko Rakolote from the Progressive Socio-Economic Investment Institute. It is the institute that was established for public benefits activities. One of those public benefit activities is organizing webinars discussing various topics. Tonight, we'll be discussing about the nitty-gritties of research proposal. And the presenter is Mr. Joe Komane, a PhD candidate at Wits University. Without a waste of time, colleagues, I'll hand over to Mr. Komane. Over to you, Mr. Komane.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, colleagues. Thanks once again for joining us. I know it is Friday, and some, if not many of you, are having a watertight schedule for the weekend. But we have to do this learning session. It is very much important. As you can see, that the topic for today, we are going to be talking about the nitty-gritties of research proposal. So two things. I'm going to be reflecting on the critical elements of research proposal. One, the second one, I am going to be illustrating by practical examples, precisely because I have submitted research proposal and I have defended it as well successfully so with Wits University, where I am studying my PhD. So the purpose of this learning session is manifold, but among others, the aim is to share insights with respect to my lived experience of writing proposals. It is also to engage with matters relating to research in order to expand one horizon. I believe that we are going to be exchanging ideas because all of us, we are not tabula rasas. We have got a lot of information as far as research is concerned that we can share in order to enrich one another. And another important thing is to demystify research. Many a times people are viewing it as a difficult exercise, which is supposed to be done by certain people, the educated and the smart, the advanced educated and the smart. So we want to simplify the process, but we don't want to make it simplistic because a research process is a complex enterprise, and that is how we need to approach it. And I'm very sorry, you cannot see me precisely because I'm experiencing load shedding here. So in terms of the presentation framework, these are the issues that are going to be covered. Basically, they all constitute critical elements of research. The first one is introduction and background. The second one, we will reflect on the statement of the problem, and then we'll look at the research purpose. We also have to talk about rationale for research, and more importantly, which is always a challenge as far as my experience, is the theoretical framework of research. And we also look at the chapter outlines. Let me state from the outset that there are many ways of doing research proposals. It depends on an individual supervisor. It depends on the department in which you are in, as we are in different departments and disciplines. It also depends on the institution of learning where you are, or the country where you are. But there are commonalities which cut across that we need to take note of. In terms of the introduction and background, I think the most important thing, you need to be very clear, you need to be very precise about the topic. The topic is very much important. It needs to be crispy. They don't need to ask questions about it. It needs to be narrow. It needs to be targeted and focused. That's something which is very much important. The second thing, in the introduction, you highlight the main points. What are the topical issues that you are going to be discussing in the research proposal? Because a research proposal is a prelude to your dissertation or your research report. And the third one, you need to situate your topic. If you are within the natural sciences, of course, or if you are, I think it's applicable across the disciplines as well. You need to situate it within a particular historical, social, and theoretical context. And a practical example, here is my topic. I looked at gender transformation. exploring the lived experiences of Black women in management positions in the selected public high schools in the Northwest Province, South Africa. That is the topic. So sorry, here between gender transformation, there is a semicolon that has to go here as well. And then issues to be covered, you're talking about the introduction and the background, which is basically overview. And then you also have to talk about the statement of the problem, the research purpose, which is basically research questions and objectives, and the rationale for doing the research, theoretical framework, research design, methodological issues, as well as the structure of the thesis. And then when we say historically, you need to locate your topic within a historical and social context. In my particular case, is to look at how politically, economically, and culturally inequalities have been produced, reproduced, and sustained during and after apartheid in South Africa, as well as the interventions that were put in place in order to achieve gender transformation. Excuse me, colleagues. And then statement of the problem. This is very much important, as you need to make sure that you are problematizing. My colleague used to say you're problematizing the research question. Then in this particular case, you need to have read, you need to have consulted literature so that you have got a basic understanding as to what is a statement of research problem. So in this particular case, you are identifying the gaps or the conceptual lacuna, which might be existent within literature, within theory, and also in policy planning. That is policy conceptualization and implementation. For example, in my research, how do I find the statement of research problem? I am arguing that gender equality is framed in terms of quantitative transformation. That is to mean that you put more women in position of management or leadership positions, then there will be transformation. And I am saying that is a transformation fallacy, precisely because that is necessary but insufficient. You still need a structural transformation. The organizational, institutional, and cultural practices needs to be transformed as well. It's not only about the number, it is also about the structure. And then in terms of violence, which I think is one of the elements of oppression, which I treat it as such, I have realized that in the policy and in the officialdom, they regard violence as something which has to do with physical harm. That is obvious, you can see it. That is illegal. It is also psychological in terms of causing trauma. It is also intentional in terms, and then they don't conceptualize it as something which is deep-rooted and pervasive, deep-rooted into the society. So they treat violence as a pathological problem, not as a social problem. So in my research proposal, I treated it as a structural violence. So which refers to any action that violates people's rights on a daily basis. And then because it creates conditions conducive for more forms of violence to take place. Another important thing that I am problematizing, or the other gap that I have realized, is that oppression is viewed as a phenomenon that occurs between people, within society and organization. But they don't treat it as something which is internal and psychological. And when it is internal and psychological, it is very difficult to be detected and to be addressed. We call it an internalized oppression. So people are concerned about policies, about what is happening in the organization, about the interaction between different people, of which bias is the main thing. They are not concerned about what happens inside the mind of an individual who has been socialized into accepting the state of inferiority of their group and themselves. in terms of the purpose, I think this is expressed in two things, namely research questions, of which there is an overarching research question, and there are also subsidiary research questions, as well as the aims, of which there are main aims, and then also as main objectives. The main question is related directly to the questions. It has to be related to the topic, the main question of the research. And then the sub-questions, for example, I have mentioned as to what are the sub-questions. So the sub-questions should be able to help you to address the main question and by extension, the research topic. Aims of research. In terms of aims of research, what you do, you simply take what you have structured as research questions and put them as aims as well. The value of research. This is very much important. What is the contribution of research? You need to state that that's something which is very much important, because we do not necessarily do research for the sake of doing it. It's not an end in itself, it's a means to an end. We want to change the life of people, particularly in the context of South Africa, where transformation in many respects, economic, social, cultural, technological, is very, very important. So what is the contribution in terms of theory building? Theory building means what is it that what is the import of your research in terms of adding to the already existing body of knowledge, and in terms of policy and planning. And then this is how I have structured this. I'm saying I'm making contribution because I'm looking at the critical race theory. That is the theory which analyzes unequal relations of power based on race. But I'm also adding critical feminist theory, which is analyzing unequal relations based on gender. But because two of them, they are not enough. They are insulated. They are not interconnected. So I connect them into what is called critical race feminist theory, which is an analysis of unequal relations based on various markers of exclusion, such as race, gender, class, age, nationality, physical ability, and so forth. So it is on the basis of this, because I am going to suggest that policy intervention should take into account that historically marginalized people, such as women and Black people, are in most cases facing intersectional oppression. So they need to take that into account and respond appropriately. I am problematizing the role of Commission for Gender Equality. They are looking at gender equality. They want to promote gender equality in all aspects of the society. But there is also South African Human Rights Commission that looks at human rights. And who said women's rights are not women's rights? They are. So that is why I'm saying that you need to understand oppression as something which is intersectional. So people get marginalized based on race, gender, age, marital status, religion, and so forth. That is something which is very much important. And another issue with regard to the value of research, I am saying historically, because the society is patriarchal, and patriarchy is the system that privileges men while disadvantaging women. So the society is patriarchal. So that means everything that is seen from the male perspective. That is what is called androcentrism, meaning that your privilege at the center is men and at the periphery is women. And for Black women, it is worse. It is worse. So when we are studying the lives, when we are studying sexism, in many instances, we are viewing it from the white women's perspective. But at the same time, while we are studying racism, we are discussing it from a Black man's perspective. That leaves out or marginalizes, we call it epistemological exclusion of women, Black women in particular. And Black women, in this particular case, I'm referring to Africans, I'm referring to coloreds and Indians, as according to the legislation, the outcome is exclusion. You are distorting their views, black women. This is what is called scientific racism and scientific sexism, which is deep-rooted in the scientific landscape. Theoretical framework. I think we need to adopt that postmodernist theory to say that there is no singular version of the truth. There are so many knowledges, and knowledge depends on context. Knowledge is individualized, is perspectival in other ways. So there is no singular version of the truth. There are many knowledges. So many universities, others call it theoretical framework, others call it a conceptual framework. To me, I call it theoretical framework because I've got my own reasons. Others can call it conceptual frameworks because they have got their own reason, as long as you are able to justify. Hence, there is no singular version of knowledge. There are multiple truths. Human beings are understanding issues in different manners. I think what we need to take into account when coming to theoretical framework or conceptual framework, we need to take the principle of articulation, the articulation theory. This is about connecting the dots. It's about understanding things, how things are interconnected, how things are integrated, and how things can be coordinated. This is something which is very, very much important. I always give an example of a truck which is reversing over the parking bay of Pick n Pay to offload the grocer from the retail. What happens is that you will see that the wheels of the truck are not facing the same direction, but the aim is the same. That is a classic illustration of articulation theory. So theoretical framework has to take that into account as well. Another important theory that we need to understand is the principles of Gestalt theory, which says the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. If you take a car, disassembles it, it makes no sense. But if you assemble it, you take a wheel, put it in the same place, petrol tank, seat, driving seat, the steering, and you put them together, they begin to make what you call sense or a meaning. Hence, we are saying the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. So theoretical framework or conceptual framework need to take that into account, because to me, it refers to social constructs such you take theories, principles, concepts in order to inform your research and in order to address the research question and the topic at hand. For example, this is what I did with my study. I used oppression theory because it tells me what is oppression, how oppression is manifesting itself, what are the phases of oppression, internalized oppression, what is it? And then I match it with identity theory. Identity theory that human beings have got many theories, and that is postmodernist. They've got many identities, not a single one. You are a father, you are a friend, you are a husband, and so on and so forth. You are a woman, you are a professional worker, you occupy a particular position, you have got children. All these particular identities are linked to roles, and those particular roles determine to the larger extent how you are being seen, or you are seeing yourself, how you get treated. And these are very much important. And I also take critical race feminist theory, which says that people get, especially Black women, they get marginalized on the basis of various axes, such as race, class, and so on and so forth. Justice theory talks about how to distribute goods and resources. And the theory of power, very much important, because power is very much important when you are dealing with that. Power to, power with, and power over. Power over, that denotes domination. Power to has to do with agency. It means you are able to do something. Power with, it means solidarity. All these things are very much important in my research. So basically what I am doing, I'm interconnecting them to demonstrate understanding, to demonstrate that I am understanding them. I'm putting the jigsaw part, they're all part of the jigsaw. I am putting them together in order to make sense. I am applying Gestalt theory. I am applying the principles of articulation theory in order to make sense. Because here, the challenge is to synthesize them so that they're able to make meaning. And you need to show how they interrelate in order to address the research question and topic. And I always talk about research question and research topic. These are very much important, ladies and gentlemen. From my experience, the topic is very much important. The research question, because it addresses the topic, very much important. You are always guided by them. Whatever that which you are doing at any stage of your research, whether you are collecting data, whether you are involved in the process of instrumentation, that is developing instruments for collecting data, and then whether you are analyzing or you are interpreting the results or writing a report, you need to take that into account. And then others, for example, under a theoretical framework, they will put concept clarification. And then here, this is what I am saying. I'm saying any definition that you are putting in your research proposal and research dissertation, for example, should be able to check what is fundamentally wrong in the society in order to address that problem, in order to address issues of equities, justice, and transformation, right? For example, if I were to ask you what is minority, are Black people minority or majority? You are likely to say they are my majority. And in my research, I am problematizing that. My intellectual partner, Mr. Rakolote, always talks about the problematizing. There is a French philosopher called Derrida, talks about deconstruction. So I am deconstructing that. I am looking for another meaning of what minority is. To me, minority is Black people. Minority is Black women because they don't have power, because they are facing all these experiences of oppression and violation of human rights. So they are a minority, and that is how I define it in my thesis, in my dissertation, in my research proposal. So I am problematizing that. It's like if somebody asks you, between the sun and the earth, which one is moving? Many people would say the sun is moving. But if you are scientifically enlightened, you are likely to say, no, actually, it is not the sun that moves, it is the earth that is moving, for example. So that's one example of how you view things differently in order to make sure that they suit your research topic. They are addressing the research questions because it's about giving answers to the research questions and addressing the topic by extension. And then let us discuss the research design and methodology. They call it in many ways. You know, it is very quite, don't be confused about so many things, precisely because there are so many, we call it them canons that we are using in research in order to look very smart. But at the end of the day, they mean more or less the simple thing. So this is a philosophical way of thinking. It is a worldview. It is the one that informs the research process. Your topic, your research questions, your theoretical framework, methodology, instrumentation, data collection, interpretation, reporting. So that is the worldview, the view that you are taking, that is going to influence. And it is made up of 4 things. The first one is ontology. Ontology is the study of what is reality, what is knowable. Is it natural or is it socially constructed? Epistemology is the study of knowing. How do we know that which we know? How do we come to know that which we know? So what we are saying, do you believe that knowledge is out there to be discovered, is independent from the human consciousness, such that there are universal laws that you can use in order to discover that knowledge? Or do you believe that knowledge is a socially constructed phenomenon, meaning that it is made and created by human beings? It depends, and as to what position are you going to take. But basically the point that we're trying to make is that paradigm is very much important. Another thing is methodology, the study of how we should go about finding out knowledge. Should we use qualitative methodology, or should we use quantitative methodology, or should we use mixed method approach? Because mixed method approach as well, the 2 approaches are not mutually or diametrically opposed to each other. They are not mutually exclusive. there is an element of complementarity that you can bring to the fore so that you are able to address the research questions by using both methods. Axiology has to do with the study of what is wrong and what is right, and the role of the inquirer, the researcher, or the knower, if you prefer. So basically, this is what we are saying. Paradigm underpins assumptions, values, and beliefs about the research topic. And then we are saying broadly, there are two paradigms that are commonly used in research. It's positivism, which argues that knowledge exists independently from human, therefore there are laws that can be applied universally to discover knowledge. And social constructivism, which views knowledge as a social construct, meaning as an artifact made by human beings, and therefore many approaches can be used to know it. The choice of methodology depends on the philosophical assumption underpinned by a particular paradigm. This is very much important. So for example, if you're going to be using qualitative methodology, and we know qualitative methodology has to do with exploring. It's a process issue. It's a process approach to a phenomenon. But if you're going to be using quantitative, you are looking for numerical data or statistical figures. Is the what, the how much, and the how many things of question. So in terms of the approach of data analysis, there are many ways of doing it. Others will talk about content analysis. Others will talk about thematic analysis. Others will talk about interpretive phenomenological analysis. At the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, it's about making sense of the data, breaking it into themes, identifying differences, comparing, looking at differences and similarities, focusing on the individual case of each research participant. So in my study, for example, I am using what is called critical discourse analysis. This is a postmodernist approach that helps me to identify inequalities, direct, covered or not covered, covered or overt, subtle or obvious, highlighted in the text, because discourse means nothing, it just means a text. A text can be either in ways, it can either be in written form, in ways, or in multimodal form. So how do I use critical discourse analysis? I am identifying experiences of oppression and violation of rights. Most specifically, I'm looking at instances of where women are marginalized, exploited, facing violence, be it direct or indirect, cultural imperialism, whereby the male is the norm and women, to be a woman is to be a deviant. Disadvantages, biasness, and bias is made up of these three things: stereotypes, prejudice, and discrimination. In instances of internalized oppression and so forth. That is what I am using when I am making sense of data. So basically, when you are analyzing data, you need to ask the other question. So don't take the information as it is, because there are certain responses that are explicit, meaning that it is obvious to pick them up, but there are others that you need to scratch and go beyond and delve deeper, right? So what you do, you listen to the silences and look for the absences and turn the whole data into, turn it upside down, just to make sure that you are able to look for more information. Because a person can say a statement and then you take it at a face value, you are failing to dive deeper into it, then you have entirely missed the point. Because it is actually what people are not saying that counts most. If you ask a person, you say, I am fine, you know that that person has experienced a traumatic event. You say, how are you? That person is likely to say, I am fine. And then you take that and say, he is or she is fine. That is not true. Look for what he or she is not saying. She is not fine as well. And then there are issues of quality and rigor in research findings. These are very much important. In qualitative research, we call it trustworthiness. That is confidence in the quality and credibility of research findings. And authenticity, that is, are you really representing the lived experiences of the participant? That is in qualitative research. In qual, they are talking about reliability, which is about the ability to produce the same results in different contexts. And other, there is validity, which measures whether the intended results are achieved using the same methods. Because we are talking about measurements, the ability to produce the same result. That is why they are talking about generalizability when coming to quantitative research methodology, if it is applied in research, generalization. But in qualitative research, generalization is not the aim, it's not the outcome. The main aim is to represent the views of the people, especially when it is phenomenological, especially when you're talking about exploring the experiences of people who have suffered a particular kind of marginalization, if not oppression. So those are the issues that you can look into in order to ensure quality, in order to ensure issues of reliability, validity, and generalizability. Limitations and delimitations. And in this way, you just highlight matters that are beyond your control. During research, there are limitations. They may be related to time and issues of funding. They may also be related to the fact that you are using one method. Delimitation refers to what the study is not focusing on, which is all women in school leadership, but the focus is on women in high school. I think I have, I have jumped this one. Sorry, I am in the darkness. I am in the darkness, you'll forgive me, colleagues. The issue of what you call the choice of methodology. And then hence I have indicated that I have skipped target population. What is target population? Target population, for example, in my particular case, is women in high school management. That is Black women in high school management. And target population means is the place where you are going to, the population that you are going to draw in order to come up with a sample. And in this particular case, it's purposive. That means it is purposeful in the sense that there is admission or inclusivity criteria. In this case, it's 12 Black women in management position in the selected public high schools with a minimum of a 3-year qualification and a 3-year managerial experience. You can hear that the target population is very clear. The admission criteria is very clear. Data collection, here is data collection. I think data collection is very much important because many people are confusing methods and instruments. That methods, for example, in this particular case, I'm using focus group, that is a method. I'm using diary, that is a method. I'm using in-depth individual interviews. Those are the methods, but the tools, we refer to semi-structured open interview guide or questionnaire. That is a tool, that is an instrument that we are using. So let us not confuse the two when coming to data collection and tools. I think that this one, we have gone through it. And then the last issue that we can deal with is about the structuring of chapters. The main important thing is to highlight the purpose of each chapter and how such purpose will be achieved in your research proposal. And then as soon as you get the research proposal right, then the dissertation or research report writing is going to be very easy. One of my friends used to say that the struggle is for clarity. We're looking for clarity. You need to be very clear. You need to be very articulate. You need to be very focused and very specific in order to ensure that your research proposal is up to scratch or demonstrates solid understanding of many issues that have to do with research. Chairperson, I think I shall pause for clarity-seeking questions or any comments or sharing of an experience. And I encourage colleagues to reflect on their experiences as well, so that we are able to exchange ideas, as I indicated earlier at the start of this presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Komane, for your presentation. Very informative. And I'm looking forward to colleagues to engage. Let me just try to summarize what you have presented. You have addressed three things: the why, the how, and the what. In the why, you spoke about why are we doing the research? It's because there is this issue that you want to deal with, and you give the background of that issue. You problematize the issue, you give which is called the statement of the problem. You give the aim or the purpose of the research, and bring the rationale, and you back up that with a theoretical framework. So that addresses the why. And you came up also with the how. Within the how, you presented the research, design, and methodology. You spoke about instrument and tools, but also you spoke about the issue of ensuring the reliability and the credibility of the findings. So you dealt with the how. Then you came and also then dealt with the what. In the what, you spoke about the limitations and the delimitations. The limitations are the things that will affect your research, that are beyond your control, and you spoke about the delimitations. So in your presentation, you have dealt with the why, the how, and the what of the research. And these are the things that you should look at when you craft your own research proposal. And thank you so much, Mr. Komane, for using your own research proposal, instead of just giving us a high level of what is a research proposal. You used your own research proposal for us to be able to understand, using yours as an example. But you caution us that it differs from institution to institution. Even within the same institution, it differs from department to department. So we should not say because yours is structured this way, therefore, we can take this as the final way of doing a research proposal. It differs from institution to institution. It differs from department to department. Thank you so much, Mr. Komane. I'll allow colleagues to ask questions. In the meantime, you can stop sharing and we can go for questions. Over to you, colleagues. Any question, comment? We can't see you. Don't have to switch on your video. It's so dark. We can't see you because of load shedding. But thank you so much for still hanging around, even if we've got load shedding. I'm also experiencing load shedding. Colleagues, raise your hand so that we can take questions or comment. Ntate Kgalema, you are the first. You can go on, my brother.
Thank you, Chairperson, of this important and pertinent topic in terms of assisting each other in knowledge development. And thank you, Dr. Komane. I think you have outdone yourself. I didn't expect that you have developed to that level of clarity that I think you have done. I think, like Dr. Sediko has already clarified most part of the things. The process is that one. Is that Mr. Komane had a lot of information with himself that I think at times he was just cluttering it all at the same time, that it can be at some time confusing, going back and forth. But I think he covered all very important aspects of doing research, especially although he mentioned it in different ways to say, but he relate more on the social type rather than in the natural side, in the natural research. So he gave two different examples in terms of paradigms of, to say, in natural research, that's where it's called scientific and knowledge is out there to be discovered. But then in social research, this is where knowledge is socially constructed, and the ways of getting it. So I think when you were especially explaining the issue of Gestalt, in which I think even when you remember, Komane, the way of getting knowledge, sometime we in our early stages of being introduced to knowledge field, there was always been approached to say from simple to complex, and from complex to simple again, or from particular to general, and from general to particular again. So I think the more you grow in the ladder of knowledge discovery, you become introduced into the complexities of the world, because the world is complicated, challenges are complicated. They need a very high quality measure of intellectual capacity in order to comprehend those complexities and make them simple again. Because the aim of education is to teach people how to think, and how to think critically. Once you can think critically, then you're going to develop some creative methods of solving the world's problems. And that's all why we're going to search for knowledge, in order to come back and develop our own communities, or help our own people to solve life challenges, no matter how complicated they are. And the more the world develops, the technology develops, the more complications become. I mean, who knew that we may face the last 3 years of darkness in terms of COVID-19? It befell us, but we had to navigate. We had to think critically in order to maneuver out of it, because we found ourselves in that problem. Otherwise, all of us could have died if we did not have clever people among us to think critically to get us out of that kind of pandemic. So it was just this particular example that education is not in isolation. We get educated in order to come back into our own communities and society to help them solve problems and make life much easier. So I think you, especially when you come to masters and PhD level, I mean, you have to, especially PhD, for example, you have to contribute to new knowledge. Your research must give us new knowledge to contribute to new body of knowledge in your field. So that is why there's a philosophical thinking. You have to think in the philosophical manner in order to do that. When he says, I said, we all are in the struggle of clarity. Yes, that's exactly that we all search methods to have clarity. When we have clarity, it means you're able to uncomplicate complex stuff into the level of other people to be able to understand them. What would be the point if you're educated talking alone? And as Sediko has just said, that Mr. Komane gave it some lively examples with his own research, because otherwise it could have been just this high-level theory which did not make sense. What do you mean by paradigm? What do you mean by ontology? What do you mean by epistemology? If you are not like bringing it into a lively example to make it practical for others to be able to grasp and understand. So when you spoke about Gestalt, Gestalt is just a simple thing that I was talking about when I say from simple to complex, and from complex to simple again. It's just that when you was, for example, saying everything you do, it must eventually have a meaning at the end. Like you gave example that of the Gestalt is a psychological theory, which means the whole is more important than the sum of the sum of its parts. Meaning that if you dismantle the car, like you said, and put all these parts into a pile, the whole parts will still be there. But somebody, when it comes, he can't say this is a car. You just say this is the sum of parts, like compiled together. But as soon as you put each part where it's supposed to be to make a frame and begin to, when anybody comes, even if it's a child, will say this is a car. So now, then it becomes like the whole, it becomes a meaning to give a shape of something. But if it's just parts combined, piled together, they have no meaning. So that's what the gestalt means. The whole is more important than the sum of its parts. So meaning that everything you do, it needs to, at the end to have a meaning. Like you said, when we start a research topic, research question to address the topic, and in each chapter, when you start each chapter, like for example, yes, it might differ from department to department, from institution to institutions, but there are quite similarities, especially in the qualitative theory, and also I'm sure in the scientific theory. In the qualitative theory, but if you say is the topic, the research question, and the aims and objectives, and therefore, then you come with the literature review. Then you have to go read almost, not if all, the literature in the field where you want to research, to hear what other people who came before you said about this topic and research it out, so that it will help you to say, these are the gaps in the literature, then therefore my topic must add to the new knowledge. It must go search for new knowledge, not that which is already there. So that's the reason for literature review, so that you become well vested with the people who research first, so that you don't come with repetition and you'll be charged with plagiarism or whatever. So that it must always contribute to the new knowledge, so that you're going to search something that is new, then you're going to contribute to it, so that when others are coming, they come in to look into that. Then the theory, the theoretical theory is that what theory are you going to use in order to explain your data, to explain your knowledge? Which theory are you going to underpin to explain the philosophical theory, to explain your results, so that they are underpinned under this theory? And then therefore you interpret your results, you get your results. So, but there's three things which are important, maybe that he missed, or maybe it didn't come out quite clear. In every chapter, you need to follow three stages: concept, the development of that concept, and the conclusion of that concept, so that all other chapters, they can link like a chain. They must hold each other. They must link to each other, so that you can see that this is coming, and it's ending, and then until it has a tail, the head, the body, and then until it becomes like a gestalt, the meaningful whole that he says again. Your chapters must not be like cluttered or like disjointed, as if they are not talking to each other. They are making one meaningful research topic and findings and everything else. So that should be your guideline. Each chapter, when you write it, so to not get off the line, you must always know that the conceptualization, development, and conclusion of that chapter, and therefore it must link with the other ones. I think that's where I needed to make some more contribution. And after all, I think, like I said, not taking away from you, Mr. Komane, you did fantastically well. Thank you, and that is Sediko.
Thank you so much, Kgalema. Colleagues, Kgalema is also a PhD candidate. I need to put that disclaimer. So he's a it's a PhD candidate speaking, so you'll understand. And they speak with passion when they talk about this thing. Kgalema, Mr. Komane, and I, we have got our own group where we've got our own intellectual gymnastics. We engage each other on these matters. Colleagues, any question, comment? Any question, comment? It might be on your specific now topic that you want to develop a research proposal for. A challenge that you are facing currently with your own research proposal that you think colleagues can resolve now. Okay. So there is no question, there's no comment except from PhD candidate Kgalema.
Maybe
You have muted Kgalema. Kgalema, you have muted. You wanted to say something and you muted.
Oh, yes.
You muted again. I don't know what's happening. You're on mute again. Yeah, now I can hear you.
I'm on mute.
Yeah, we can hear you now.
I'm saying it's worrisome if there are no questions.
Yeah.
It means we spoke above colleagues, so which shouldn't be the case, because maybe if they want us to bring it, because I mean we need to engage, not between the three of us. I think that's the reason why we invited colleagues, and that's why they took their time to come through. I think maybe they can ask questions. I mean, whatever. I mean, if they say we took it to a high level, maybe we can bring it lower, because so that we can engage. And like you correctly put it, they can ask questions in terms of their specific topics or whatever the idea that they want, so that we can assist. Because yeah, it's worrisome if there is no engagement. It means we did something wrong.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Kgalema. Colleagues, feel free to ask any question related to research proposal. It might be on a topic that you are still thinking about it, or you have started writing and now you are stuck somewhere. Feel free to ask that question. And colleagues, we are all here to learn from each other.
Yeah.
There's no one who's got monopoly of wisdom on these matters. We are here to share knowledge and learn from each other. If there is no question, colleagues, feel free also maybe to approach Mr. Komane. Oh, your hand is up. Kgalema, kindly mute, please. Smongile, your hand was up. Okay, the hand is gone. Feel free, colleagues, to type your questions in the chat box if you are not comfortable in asking those questions.
Okay,
yes, Mr.
Yeah, while maybe they're still thinking, maybe let's challenge each other and ask Mr. Komane questions, or ask ourselves questions. Maybe along the way they'll pick up to understand. Because we shouldn't just support each other. I think we need to also to see that there's no right or wrong answer in a social research. So we can critically think to and from and against each other. So what I wanted to ask Mr. Komane is that I think I picked up some sense of dogmatism in which you are in social research, but there are places where I picked up you thinking to say that things are punctuated on particular things that you need to follow. For example, in your case, in your research, you said you checking power relations, and you spoke about, and I think the way it didn't come out clearly is that you spoke about you say Black women are a minority quality, and then but then they can be majority in quantity. I think if you populate the management with people, and then but you're still saying that is insufficient, then in terms of quality, how are you going to ensure their quality to also make it majority on both sides, both qualitative and quantitative?
Thank you so much, Mr. Kgalema. Mr. Komane.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. What I indicated is that there is no absolute knowledge. Knowledge is open to contestation, and there is no singular version of the truth. As a result, my definition of minority is somebody who is exposed to various kinds of marginalization, oppression, exploitation, powerlessness, and bias. And then women, particularly Black women who are in leadership positions, are part of that particular category from where I am standing in line with my definition. And then I have said that, and I have argued that in South Africa, the problem or the conceptual lacuna or the gap which is existent within policy practice is that many people think that by taking women and giving them positions, then it is sufficient. And I've argued that it is necessary but insufficient, precisely because you are bringing women into the domain which is historically male dominated in terms of leadership. And then it means structures, it means culture. The structure and culture that are there are male dominated. They are still going to experience all forms of oppression as a result of that. So what we need to do, if we talk about transformation, we need to bring women into the fold, that is in leadership positions, but we also need to think about transforming the entire structure and the culture in order to ensure that it does not bring unnecessary impediments to women when they are enacting their leadership functions. That is how I put it. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you so much.
Dr. Sediko, can I make a follow-up?
Before you make a follow-up, okay, let me make a follow-up. Mr. Kgalema, make a follow-up.
Yeah, I think Mr. Komane's problematic approach or assumption, let me rather say assumption, is that women lack agency. They are out there coming as helpless and hopeless beings to be done things for, and they are waiting for men with the same patriarchal system to come and liberate them against the same men who designed the same system. Women have agency and they can liberate themselves, even if it's one or two in that system. They can still fight the bullyism of their male counterparts, and they don't need to be affirmed or to be done things for. So they need to be acknowledged that they have agency by themselves to rescue themselves. So that assumption, I think, Mr. Komane, I need to become aware about.
Yeah.
And do you understand that, Mr. Komane?
Mr. Komane, do you want to come back?
Yes, I've never said women are not having agency. But you need to understand that what comes first is the structure. They are born into the structure. The structure is the one which is deep-rooted into the social fabric of the society. So that creates problems for them when they're enacting leadership, hence they're experiencing problem of discrimination. And then I am saying that if we were to achieve de facto gender transformation, we need not only put women in leadership positions, but they need also to deal with the structure, which many people are born into, which socializes people into believing that when you are thinking about management, you are thinking male. You know, they think manager, think male phenomenon or stereotype or a syndrome that is very, very problematic. But I'm not taking away their agency. Hence, when I was talking about power, I delineated 3 types of power. The power to, that means agency. They've got the power to change, yes. But there is also power with. They can change it with other like-minded people as well. But the power over is the domination, which in many cases is imposed by structural conditions that they found themselves in as well. And then I am saying this precisely because these are the findings. This is not an anecdotal evidence, it's an empirical evidence. When I'm interviewing women, what comes out of data is saying that there are structural factors that are impeding them. For example, they will talk about the workload between what they do at their professional setting and inside their home. They are responsible for domestic and child rearing practices on one hand. On the other, they are responsible for enacting leadership as well. And this brings unnecessary pressure because the professional work environment is not favoring them. They are women, they've got husbands, they've got children, they've got mothers that they take care of, and the elders, they also cook, they are also responsible for house management. And then that is what is creating problems. And this is how the society is structured. Hence, I talk about structural transformation. You need to change the structure, not only put them in power, that is necessary but insufficient. Change the structure so that the structure favors them as well going forward. Then you will talk about transformation in de facto. Otherwise, it becomes a piecemeal. And there is also this element of queen bee syndrome. When women are in power, and research studies indicate that when they're in power, they've got a tendency, some of them, and it comes out of the data, they've got a tendency of discriminating against those who wants to follow their leadership path as well. So there are a wide variety of factors that are contributing towards creating conditions not so conducive for women to enact leadership. Thank you.
Okay, I will request you, Mr. Komane and Mr. Kgalema, to go to the chat box and check there. There is a question from one of the participants. It appears to me the topic is not clear as it stands, but the follow-up questions on that, it says, will one start how studies affect adult learners internationally, nationally, and specific group, or just focus on the specific group? So first thing, I'm not clear about the topic. I think that she needs to clarify the topic so that it becomes easier for us to respond directly to the questions that she's raising. Please check that in the chat box. Sibongile, would you like to clarify the question, your questions?
Hi, good evening, everyone.
Hi, Sibongile.
So we're struggling with a research. Currently a 4-year nursing student, and majority of people in our classroom are adults, married with children, over the usual age that is taken to actually do the course. So we currently in our 3rd year, and a lot of people, the studies have affected their marriages, their relationships, the relationship with children. Also for the fact that they have to move away from home and actually be based in Pretoria. So we're trying to formulate this research on how the studies, this 4-year nursing diploma has affected the 4-year nursing, the 4-year nursing diploma has affected adult learners. So even with our literature, we're not sure whether do we start investigating from adult learners internationally, how they're affected by studies in general, or we just focus on our group specifically, just as.
Okay, thank you so much. Is the question clear, colleagues?
Yes. Yeah, it is very clear.
Can I take it?
Yeah, you go first, Kgalema, then Komane will come.
Yeah, I think it goes back to the same type when I talk about the level of research. I think we spoke at the very high level of masters and PhD, which is very, very far. I mean, for people who are still doing third year, we need to bring it down to their level. I think in that case, if I heard you well, is that you're looking at the research of specific group of people who left their homes from other parts of the country to come to congregate in Pretoria at the nursing college to study, and how that is affecting them. I think looking at it at that level, yeah, they are not. Don't stress yourself, Swangile, about what we're saying now. Is still further ahead there. So otherwise, it's just going to confuse you. So at your level, it's simply quite narrow because where you are now, they want to talk all those paradigms, all these things as we're saying, they are meaningless to you. They won't make any sense to you. At that level, they don't require things like that. So here, they just want you to have a research topic. The way you said, you see how it affecting them. So international literature and everything else is too much wide. Yes, you can just, but we don't expect you to exhaust all the literature. So just show your teachers that indeed you considered some literature review in that regard, to say for people who are, because to me it appears like sense of migrancy, where you live, because other people in other parts of the world, they can study going home. Like people who are coming here from Pretoria is not affecting them because maybe they can study going back home into their families. But those that come from outlying areas like Limpopo, Mpumalanga, whatever, they have to leave their families and come here to be affected. So it's a quite specific group. They are not looking for something too much wide, like when you're already at the high level. So look at that, the same topic, focus on it. Look at the bits of literature. If you even in fact, yeah, to show that you read something about, but they are not going to look for anything wide than too much. So it's a very narrow and specific one, because it's still at the third year, not even postgraduate. So it's quite very, very narrow, really. Maybe one can take it further, but please, Mr. Komane, the reason why I ran to go first, I knew you're going to complicate it and make it big. So I was afraid of you. I was disciplining you, in fact.
No, I'll direct him to simplify it, and I'll also in my summarizing try to simplify it, Mr. Kgalema. Let's not take it there. Mr. Komane.
It has to go with stages
Yes.
of where the study of level is.
Yes.
Swangile, I think you want to explore the lived experiences of female adult learners in a nursing course. And then you want to know what factors are affecting the adult learners, and then what kind of learner support that they are given, and how effective is that learner support. And then issues of literature, I think, literature, you can look at international literature briefly to say, actually, what are the factors that are affecting them, how, and then come to local literature to say that in South Africa, what are the factors that are negatively affecting learners who are studying, adult learners, and then what kind of support are they receiving? What do they think? What is their perceptions about that learner support? Is it effective or not effective? I have written in the chat box as well.
Yeah, thank you, Kgalema and Komane. And if you want to simplify it further or check the literature, you can just go to Google Scholar and just type maybe lived experience of adult learners. You may find that already there are people who have studied around this topic. It might not be the adult learners in nursing college, but it will be adult learners. So just check that.
Yeah.
Understanding the lived experience. It's already there. I went to Google. I found a dissertation by one person who has written about understanding the lived experience of adult learners. So if first you can start by getting dissertations that are not far away from the topic that you want to research. Read the dissertation. Research is about, I was told by one supervisor who said, research is about 80% of reading and 20% of writing. So you must read more than you're going to write. Gather these dissertations of other scholars, read what they've written, check their findings, check the methods that they've used, and then you can now formulate the topic that is relevant to you. I went there to Google. I found a dissertation at the doctor's level. This is at the level of the PhD in the field of education, understanding the lived experience of adult learners. You can find a lot of these type of dissertations and read about them. Don't jump into starting to formulate topics and what before you can read at least more than 10 articles within the space that you want to enter into. You can't just jump into start topic, think about topic without reading. And on daily basis, Mr. Komane used to say, on daily basis, at least read one article a day. Then you can be able, it will become easier for you to start formulating research topics. Thank you so much. Any question?
Yeah, I wanted to say that perhaps offline, I think to some, I've got, although my time is limited, I can help in terms of making sure that we go through that step by step, that research proposal, how to go through, how to structure a research proposal step by step as well.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Komane. Then the email address of Mr. Komane is in the chat box. Then you can take the discussion further. But like Khalema is saying, sometimes when people are in a certain level, they can take it very high up there. But I think Komane will take it to the undergrad level. Colleagues, any question before we close? It's about 17 minutes past 7. We're about to close. Any question? For those that want to engage offline, please drop your details in the chat box and we can arrange a follow-up with you one-on-one. Thank you so much, colleagues, for your time. Thank you, Mr. Komane. Thank you, Mr. Khalema and other colleagues. It was really a very informative session. We will continue having this type of sessions where we share knowledge and experiences, and we continue learning from each other. Thank you so much, and have a lovely evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.